Between injuries, benchings, and subpar performances, our dynasty hopes are being dashed on the rocks of reality. The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. All of the research and assumptions are now thrown out the windows, and we need to make some decisions. Well, we're here to help tonight on the Rod Pod. It's time to pull up a chair and talk some Dynasty football. I am your host, J.J. Wetter, and this is the Rider Dynasty Podcast. With me is my co-host, Jameson Hutchinson, and let's get right to it. Joe is on assignment tonight, but he left us with a burning question, Jameson. Prior to this season, the top three running backs were CMC, Bijan, and Brees. Now, here we are, ready for week 6. CMC hasn't played. Bijan Robinson is ranked 18th in PPR, and Brees is 13th. So Joe wanted to know, how are we ranking the running backs in Dynasty? So, Jameson, who are your top 3 running backs?
I think it's very tough. Went last week on my Bijan rant. I would have him outside the top 3. I'm going to still stand by that. And it just really comes down to what you think about Christian McCaffrey as far as his age. It doesn't look very good. I think we need to have the talk about Saquon Barkley, who is running back number 1, who he has showed that the entire year. The offense is about to get healthy again. And I think the offense is going to kind of kick off again with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown back. I think that's good news for Saquon Barkley and just the offense as a whole. Another guy we need to talk about, Kyren Williams, the workhorse that keeps getting there every single week. These are guys that felt like all offseason people didn't want to click and redraft. And Dynasty, they were trying to sell high and get as much as they could. And they come back here in 2024, and they do the same thing that they've done the entire past way. So honestly, I like Brees Hall. I would keep him in the top 3. I would add Saquon to that. And then I'd probably put Kyren Williams there. And then outside of that, some noticeable mentions, I would say Kenneth Walker and then Jahmyr Gibbs as well. But, Jahmyr Gibbs is in a timeshare with David Montgomery, who also another guy that everybody's tired of who keeps getting it done. So I think my top 3 is a little different, but I think I can back that up with stats so far as why I would go that route.
So give those to me again. Your top 3 is Brees.
And then I would go Saquon Barkley. And Kyren Williams.
Okay.
It's a little different, but I'm just going the Christian McCaffrey age gap, and then Bijan is a guy that I talked about last week. Everybody clicks top 3 each week. He doesn't get there. We do it all over again. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting something different. So, doing something different.
Well, I'm putting on my insane hat. So if I had to rank the and it's hard. This is going to be hard for me, but I would say Brees, Bijan, Gibbs.
I think it's fair.
But once we get outside of those 3, then I like Barkley is way high in my list. I had him in my top 5 with Kenneth Walker. So for me, my top 5 is Brees, Bijan, Gibbs, Walker, and Barkley. But should we be having a conversation about anybody else? Like who are your next 2?
I would say Devon Achane when the Dolphins are on, full cylinder, which that's kind of hard to do. And then the other guy I think we need to talk about is James Cook. His workload for the Buffalo Bills has been just astronomical. I know he's got turf toe, but last week against the Texans, even though they were down, he was still getting the ball. They've spent entire halves just feeding him, even when they're down. He's a guy, like I said, maybe it's just a running back thing, but a lot of these people just didn't want to click him or trying to sell high. Nobody really believed in James Cook this offseason. He shows up. The volume's there, especially in today's NFL where all these running back rooms are by committees.
Right.
Like the big dog Derrick Henry's getting older. I wouldn't have him ranked that high just because of his age, but he's getting it done this year. But I would have James Cook and Devon Achane just that tier behind there. But like I said, Achane, when Tua's not there and the offense sucks, I mean, it's hard to rank him there too. That's the other issue I have with that.
The only player who I think might sneak into my top 5 or be close that we haven't mentioned is Pacheco.
Yep, I was going to bring him up as well, but just he's another guy who ends up with volume. The Chiefs offense, everybody thought that they were just going to throw the piss out of the ball and go back to old times, but I mean, they were just running it with Pacheco, and before he got hurt, he was doing really well. I'm scared about the injury. Even if he comes back, it seems like one of those injuries that time will tell. But he definitely, before he got injured, deserved that top 5 recognition as well for what he's done on the Chiefs offense that gets it done every single week somehow.
So I guess my only question then for us, I mean, Joe's not here, is what do we do with Mason?
Sell him. That's what I would try to do. I don't think Jordan Mason is Christian McCaffrey if you watch the 49ers games. Outside of last week, he has gotten a ton of volume, and he's kind of gotten there on volume, but as far as, he doesn't do the pass down stuff that Christian McCaffrey was expected. And whenever Christian McCaffrey comes back, I think that Jordan Mason will take a back seat. I mean, I don't think it ends up – Kyle Shanahan does not run this, 2-committee running back room.
Right.
Just he runs one and runs it into the ground until they're done, and we'll do it all over again. So I would try to sell Jordan Mason, but at the same time, like when you hit these gold mines, it's kind of hard. I mean, you're probably at least going to get another month out of him. I mean, he sets up really nice tonight against the Seahawks, who we'll get into in a little bit. But he's quietly gotten it done. But I mean, once Christian McCaffrey comes back, I expect him to play next year, and I expect him to be good still. He ends up being a backup. So I mean, if you are going to sell high at the moment, I mean, this would be the time to do it and try to get somebody more stable with a better outlook past, this month and this year, honestly.
So do you think CMC comes back this year?
I do.
I'm sorry. Let me phrase that question a little bit better. Do we think he comes back and plays in more than 4 or 5 games?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I think he comes back November, so give it about a month from what it seems like. And it just seems like they're being extra cautious with him more than anything. And I know it kind of came off bad, but it seems like, I don't want to say he was able to play, but I mean, I don't think this is like a death sentence to him as far as what it goes. But I think he plays November. I mean, you get December, so you get the fantasy playoffs. And, even with that being said, Brock Purdy's looked really good compared to last year. I think he's grown as a quarterback. And when everybody thinks, when one's really good, that means the other guy has to come down. I mean, if Brock Purdy's good, that raises the rest of the offense. That means more attempts, more, possibilities for touchdowns, which we like compared to some of these guys, which I know we got a question about Chuba Hubbard, which we'll get into in a minute. And it kind of, the comparison between a guy like him and Chuba Hubbard is Chuba's on a bad offense and he's not going to score a ton of touchdowns, where CMC, even if he doesn't get 100 yards a game, he ends up getting the touchdowns, and I think that goes for a lot. So,
well, you brought up the comment. Let's take a look. What is Chuba Hubbard worth in Dynasty?
I think he's a hold, especially throughout this year. I know that this offseason we spent a lot of time telling everybody to stash Jonathan Brooks on the IR.
Right.
His window has not been open for IR, which I think kind of stinks. It should have been open by now. I mean, it was an early ACL tear from Texas last year. And I think this is going to kind of end up being like a redshirt year for him, where he probably doesn't play much. And if he does, Chuba Hubbard's been good. So I think Chuba Hubbard's a hold right now. I don't know if you would be able to sell high with him, because I think he's kind of got a stigma that he's just kind of just one of those volume backs. But I mean, he's one of the top efficient running backs in the NFL right now. Offensive line's been better. Say what you want about Andy Dalton, the offense improved a lot with Bryce Young gone. And he's been getting receiving work too. So even if Jonathan Brooks comes back this year, you're still fighting Chuba Hubbard, who, it's not like he's Miles Sanders. Chuba Hubbard's been very efficient. He's been very good with the stuff that he's gotten as well. So I would hold Chuba Hubbard. I think he's worthwhile, especially this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up like kind of a committee thing next year with Jonathan Brooks.
All right. Well, I know, Jameson, that you want to talk about some new starting QBs, but before we do, let's get a word from our sponsors and start your season off right with IDP Plus. Visit idpplus.com and for a limited time, get 20% off any subscription with the promo code PROPS. Get access to our tools, data, and IDP articles. And don't miss out on our subscriber Discord, where your subscription gets you access to our entire suite of tools. So go to IDP Plus and start your march towards fantasy football glory today. All right, Jameson, what do you have for us?
Kind of want to talk about these rookie quarterbacks who are going into their first starts this week. So we've got Drake Maye and Spencer Rattler. I think both are very interesting. We'll start with Drake Maye. Patriots came out this offseason and said they had a plan for him. I don't know if the plan was thrown to the Houston Texans defense that is number 4 ranked overall, giving up only 154 yards of passing to opposing quarterbacks. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me behind this offensive line that is atrocious, the weapons or lack thereof. And, kind of going back to his college stuff, Drake Maye, his real breakout year is 2022. He ended up being the ACC Player of the Year. Offensive line and the weapons around him regressed in 2023. And not saying that he was bad by any means, but his 2022 season was much better than 2023. Kind of similar to Will Levis. He had a breakout year, had a year after that was kind of a letdown, and he still kind of got into the NFL.
Well, Sam Howell was the same way at North Carolina.
Yep. So same thing as well. So it's interesting, especially in dynasty landscape, because especially if you're playing Superflex, he was probably a top 3 choice behind, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, maybe the wide receivers, but I mean, borderline top 5 pick. He's very athletic. He's got a lot of tools to work with. I'm very worried about the Patriots dynasty landscape overall. And he's got some running ability, but I'm very worried about this year, obviously, and even going into next year. The offensive line for the Patriots need a complete, basically tear down and rebuild. The only decent offensive lineman they had just got hurt and is out for the year, and the rest of them are just turnstiles. So he's throwing to guys, Jalen Polk, who's a rookie who has been fine, I guess, Mario Douglas, and Kendrick Bourne. I mean, if anything, Drake Maye would be lifting the rest of these players up, not that any of these guys would be lifting Drake Maye up. So I'm just really worried about him this year and then even going into next year because the entire offense needs an overhaul. And outside of him having a little more like athleticism as far as a runner, I don't know what he offers compared to Jacoby Brissett right now in this offense. I'm not talking about the player. I mean, if he does play action, he turns his back to the defense, he turns around, there's going to be a defender right there to Goldberg spear him. I mean, that's not on him. That's the offensive line. So you can I don't understand the plan or lack thereof. Jacoby Brissett was not good, but nobody's going to be good. I mean, put Tom Brady behind this, he's going to fail. I would say the same thing about Patrick Mahomes, and he's considered, the greatest quarterback of all time or second there to Brady. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm just really worried about his obviously short-term outlook. I know people are excited about him, but even long-term as well. We talk about these quarterbacks who get set up to fail, and it just feels like we're throwing them out to the ocean to sink or swim.
Yeah, I mean, our buddy Sean says like Drake Maye is going to get beat up behind that very offensive line. I agree absolutely with Sean on this one. You came into the season with a very cogent plan. You were gonna let Jacoby Brissett play because it was a terrible offense.
Yep.
So the season progresses. You see it's a terrible offense. You see Brissett's getting beat up, and then you decide to change your plan. Like everything was happening exactly as they thought it was going to happen.
Yep.
And then I don't know. I'm going to go on my little billionaire rant in a minute about the Jets. But it is amazing to me how stupid some billionaires are and how thin their skin is and how they can't take any sense of embarrassment, if that's what it is, in order to move your entire team and product forward.
Yep.
So I'm very shocked that I'm not shocked that they gave up this soon. Kraft
I
saw
just
some empty seats and started to flip out.
No, you're all good. I just don't think it, as far as I mean, I think Drake May will be a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett, but in this atmosphere, I don't really, outside of a little bit of that athleticism, I don't understand the difference there. But it's really all I have on Drake May. Some guy, or excuse not some guy, another guy that I'm very actually excited about is Spencer Rattler, playing for the Saints with Derek Carr being out, and I think it's very intriguing. Played at Oklahoma for a few years. If you know Spencer Rattler's background, he's kind of a punk coming out of high school. He's highly recruited. He went on, I think it was like a TV show or a documentary. Kind of came off as
QB1.
Yeah, kind of came off as a entitled, prick to say the least.
He did. I watched that season. I had actually watched the previous season, Jameson, and loved the show. And it was his season that I stopped watching because he was so arrogant.
Yeah. So a lot of it is because of the tools that he's got. I mean, he possesses he's very athletic. He's got a cannon of an arm. I mean, I don't like talking about arm talent. I think that's a little weird. Peyton Manning asked one time on the Manning cast what arm talent actually is. But I do think that he is very good as a quarterback. And I know he was only a fifth rounder, and we kind of brush those guys off. But I think it's very interesting. And what he did at South Carolina last year, Xavier Leggett, both of them had, statistical years, best at South Carolina history for a team that went 5-7, playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in football. So I know college is different than the NFL, but him playing behind the Saints offensive line that's battered and bruised is, technically different because it's NFL players, but it's not any different from what he came from in South Carolina. So weapons are obviously better. I think he sets up in a better situation than Drake May, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed. Two guys. He can make both of them work out, and he's just totally different from Derek Carr as far as quarterbacks go. Derek Carr is conservative, doesn't play with a lot of juice. Spencer Rattler's got a little bit of sauce to him. He's going to push the ball downfield. He's got a cannon. We talked about Rashid Shaheed. I think he's improved as a wide receiver, but everybody thinks of him as just a deep threat. I think it works very well for Spencer Rattler. I'm very interested to see, because he wasn't really thought of in Dynasty that much. He was kind of a late round flyer. People were tired of Derek Carr last year. They were over the Derek Carr experience in New Orleans, and I think it'll be kind of hard to dethrone him. But if Spencer Rattler shows anything this coming weekend against the Buccaneers, I think that the crowd will get a little loud and hope to see more of him. So he's a guy that I'm interested in. And I think a lot of scouts and stuff are too, because he was one of the highly recruited quarterbacks coming out of high school and then college as well. So it just he's the guy I'm interested in. I think his tools work really well with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. So he's a guy that I'm looking forward to. And I think he's grown up a lot, and I think that kind of goes with it. I think a lot of people still have the stigma from when he seemed pretty arrogant, played at Oklahoma, kind of got kicked out and went to South Carolina. So I think he's grown up a little bit, and I'm excited to see him play this weekend.
So, question from the audience. What do we think about Richardson's value in Dynasty? And you know what? I'm going to let you take this one, buddy, being that you were one of the biggest cheerleaders for Anthony Richardson.
I'm not going to lie. I'm very nervous right now. And I just think it's really tough because he's not reliable. You talk about the growing pains. I can get through that stuff. I can have patience in life. I know some people can't. They want instant results. But, if he's going to get hurt and miss days, and you got Joe Flacco, who offense looked a lot better behind, I'm worried about it. Yeah, I think he's a hold, as much as that scares me. I hope that we get to see some stuff this weekend, because especially this year, he had the really good week 1, and then hasn't really showed up. I'm willing to go through the growing pains, and I think he's a hold, maybe even a buy low if somebody's really scared. But to say I'm not, I'm a little scared. I'm not going to lie, and that's coming from the guy who was leading the ship and on the bus screaming goodbye, bye, bye, greatest of all time, QB1. I'm a little nervous, but
yeah,
I think you got to hold. It's the reliability stuff for me.
I have to say, if you are looking to make a move and you're looking to get low on Richardson, you can send me an offer in almost any league. I think I'm looking to get out, Jameson.
I don't blame you.
You know, I'm an old man. I don't have time to wait for Big Tony to develop, but I can understand people being intrigued by him so much. It just really hurts me to watch old man Flacco come in and watch the offense kick up a couple notches. That shouldn't be the case, but here we are.
Yeah,
Here we are.
it's tough because as far as the fantasy ceiling goes, I mean, Joe Flacco's had I don't know the number. It's like 4,300,000 yard games in the last 2 years. I mean, he wakes up, gets out of bed, takes his kids to school, and then drops 300 yards on opposing defenses and goes back to the house like it's nothing. And it seems like Anthony Richardson, is struggling to get 50 yards. And the problem this year, we'll get off this topic here in a second, but the problem with his fantasy stuff this year is he's sitting in the quarterback and wants to be a quarterback, and he's not running. Part of the entire portion of this stuff, like Jaden Daniels right now, he's running. Even the design runs. And I mean, the one design run that Anthony Richardson has, he gets hurt. So if you want to buy low, I think it's fine. I'm going to hold. I'm very worried about it. I would love if it would settle my heart a little bit if he came out and just whooped the Texans this week. But so I don't hate that. I don't hate that. I don't think Pittman is much with Richardson. So I think as far as the ceiling goes, I'd rather have Richardson. I mean, if Flacco's going to play, Pittman would be the guy. But it seems like Pittman's about to go on IR, so it might be good to get out from underneath of him at the moment.
4 more weeks. All right, sir. Well, if we were at a party, I wouldn't let you do this, but we're not. So I'm going to let you double dip. You're up again.
So we'll just want to talk about the Texans offense overall real quick. So is that what we were talking about? I believe.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Texans.
I just want to make sure. So Nico Collins, who we talked about being like a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, ends up on IR. And I think this really sucks. And a lot of people are just going to lean into Tank Dell. A little worried about Tank Dell and worried about the passing offense in general. So Tank Dell's coming off an injury similar to Tony Pollard's last year, where he didn't look the same. He also got shot. I don't know how much that goes into anything. But the last 4 games that he's played this year, he missed one. 3 for 40, 1 reception for -3 yards, 5 for 62. That was the game against Minnesota where C.J. Stroud just had to chuck the hell out of the ball, and then 4 for 38. So I think a lot of people come to the mindset Nico Collins is out. This goes directly to Tank Dell. His yards per catch is down. Yards per attempt are down. It is a big bummer, especially a guy like me who's going through it. Had him, Rashee Rice. I thought I hit home runs on both. Both of them are out. I'm at church praying over my fantasy team again. So it just
it's not going well. You better double down.
No, times are tough. So I think a lot of people just come to the assumption that Tank Dell is going to absorb the Nico Collins, I don't want to say role, but just his production. I don't think that's the case. And going to Stephon Diggs, 6 for 33. He had 2 touchdowns his first game. And then outside of that, he has not had any touchdowns the rest of the season so far. 4 for 37, 10 for 94, 5 for 69, and 8 for 62 yards. So it's been fine. I mean, the 30-year-old wide receiver, I don't think he's going to take on the alpha role that Nico Collins has as well. And the one thing I want to bring up, C.J. Stroud hasn't really gotten there. He's had over 30 attempts in each of his games so far this year. He was like a quarterback 5 area getting drafted. He's quarterback 22 overall. So this passing offense, even though Nico Collins has been great, hasn't really gotten there. And now that Nico Collins is gone, I'm worried that it kind of, plummets. And then we get Joe Mixon back. So I think, if anything, I think the running game, Dameon Pierce seems like he's going to be on the come up too. So I think Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce kind of absorb a lot of the Nico Collins, stuff, and they kind of just lean into the run. Dalton Schultz, he's okay too, with tight end being as bad as it is. But I think people are trying to buy low on Tank Dell, and I kind of think that's a wrong move, personally. But
so you're saying it's Bobby Tree season?
I'm not. I mean, I could be here going Xavier Hutchinson, even though our last names are a little different, but I didn't even know Bobby Trees was still being planted in the league. I just been tough sledding, but like I said, one guy's out, so we just automatically throw the production elsewhere. I'm just kind of raising my hand saying, I'm not sure yet.
Okay, so nobody's going to be able to replace what Nico does, right? We've seen Nico sort of do the Amon-Ra St. Brown breakout where we're like, holy crap, like this guy is dominating. So the passing has to go somewhere. If you had to throw in a chip on who is going to lead the team in targets, who do you think it's going to be?
It'd still be Stephon Diggs, but I don't think those targets are as meaningful. I mean, Stephon Diggs does a lot of the dirty work underneath. And I mean, I guess for PPR purposes, getting peppered with targets is a good thing. But we saw the last year and a half, last second half of the year when he was in Buffalo, he was the only guy in town he wasn't getting it done. And, Tank Dell, I think, plays a completely different game than Nico Collins. I mean, Nico Collins can beat you intermediate, he can beat you deep. And Tank Dell's kind of approach has always been kind of beating guys deep, but I just don't think I think Dalton Schultz will get a little bit of rub here, but I just think they're going to lean into the run game. The offensive line's pretty good. Like I said, CJ Stroud hasn't gotten there, even with, we've talked about this wide receiver trio as the best in football before the season. So that's a good point, too. So
Sean Teague mentioned that last season it didn't matter who was in the lineup. Noah Brown, Nico, Tank, Schultz, etc.
Just think the passing offense has been different. Bobby Sloak is just, I'm not saying he's a bad offensive coordinator, but he was getting some head coaching looks, and everybody thought he was kind of a genius. He does a lot of the first round runs, which kind of drives me nuts. But I don't necessarily trust him as much as other offensive coordinators to kind of fix this while Nico Collins is out. I'm worried that CJ Stroud, who, like I said, is quarterback 22 overall. People were drafting him, think of him as a top 5 quarterback or at least top 10. I just kind of worried about it. I don't think the offense with Nico Collins is going to be moving the same as it was the first 4 weeks.
I agree. I definitely think the Texans should trade Bobby Slowick to the Jets for Hackett now that he's free for some play calling duties. I'd make that trade.
So like I said, my main point on this is I've just seen it all this week on the Twitter machine. Everybody's, Tank Dell season hasn't looked the same. I don't think he's looked the same. I don't think Stephon Diggs might get there on volume, but as far as efficiency, I don't think he's going to get there. Dalton Schultz at this point, you close your eyes, throw a dart, and pray that tight end hits anything. And I just think they're going to lean into Joe Mixon coming back. And that's kind of where I think a lot of this is going to go. So just my thoughts on the Texans offense for the next 4 weeks while my top 5 Dynasty wide receiver is nursing a hamstring.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And as you know, Jameson, it is football season. And that means a trip to see your favorite team on the road. Well, with Expedia, you get the best prices when traveling, and we are thrilled about our partnership with them. Do you need a flight to Denver, rent a car in Miami, or a hotel in San Francisco? Go to idpplus.com/Expedia and build the best package to travel to the big game. Now, Jameson, I've been kind of preparing all day for this. Thanks. Thank you, Sean. But I want to take a minute to talk about my beloved Jets. Now,
This is a Jets podcast after all.
In case you didn't know, it is a Jets podcast. That is a little Chad Pennington and a little Curtis Martin bobblehead behind me.
I'll let you have the floor.
As we know, the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, decided to fire Robert Saleh after this Sunday's loss to the Vikings. And obviously, I have some thoughts about this. I'm going to try to remain rational, level-headed. So I'm just going to start by saying Robert Saleh deserved to be fired. He did. He absolutely did. Robert Saleh was not a good head coach. I like Robert Saleh a lot. I wanted him to be a better coach. He wasn't ready to be the head coach of an NFL franchise. He has an undisciplined team. The penalties weren't improving. They still look sloppy. He makes offhanded comments that maybe he'll get more involved in the offense. You are the head coach. How about you get involved like already? And so I get that. He's focused on the defensive side. The defensive side is really great. That's where he's worried about. But my question, Jameson, is why now? Why now? Sure, we lost to the Vikings. Okay. But Brian Flores is tormenting QBs all over this league. The fact that Aaron Rodgers had a bad game against him probably says more about Flores and how great that team is performing as it does about Rodgers, who has been underperforming, if we're being honest. So why now? The Jets are 2-3. We're going to visit Buffalo on Monday. If we win, we're in first place in the division. Defense is playing well. So I'm confused. Now, Woody Johnson is a terrible owner. I mentioned earlier about a little billionaire rant. Robert Kraft getting upset because of a couple empty seats. Woody Johnson getting upset because some of his English buddies saw his team get beat in England, and now he's all hurt and embarrassed. So he has to make a big decision. Dude, you inherited your money. Shut up. What have you done in your life? Like, and I don't mean that to be mean. Sure. Oh, he was an ambassador. That's great. You're an ambassador because you donated a ton of money to a presidential candidate who wants money. You didn't earn that ambassadorship through your stewardship and your genius. So I don't like you, Woody Johnson. I don't like you one bit. Why didn't you just fire Saleh over the summer? You were thinking about it. You didn't like him. You wanted to go in a different direction. Either fire him over the summer or let him have the season. Like, just... Okay, sorry. I'm trying to remain rational. And I haven't cursed yet, if you've noticed.
I think you're behaving a little too much.
Well,
I think you need to let, like Elsa says in Frozen, just let it go.
Let it go. Let it go. So, yeah, I mean, I was hoping he would get fired over the summer. They'd bring in Vrabel. Hell, even Belichick. Just somebody who could right the ship. But the more I think about it, it doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is. As long as Woody Johnson is the owner, this team is going to be terrible. And for the first time since they hired Gase and Greg Williams in that double whammy a few years ago, I'm really questioning whether or not I should continue my fandom. I owe nothing to them. I discovered them, right? I didn't have a team. I went to college, went to Hofstra. That's where they had their training camp. My freshman year was Wayne Corbett's senior year. Then he gets signed, undrafted. So I just fell in love with the Jets. But I don't owe them any. Like, they don't own me, Jameson, do they?
I don't think so. If it gives you any hope, I quit the San Diego Chargers when they moved to LA because I was tired of ownership. Does that count? There is a path, but I mean, I guess I'll add on. I'll be a little more relentless. I think Nathaniel Hackett should be arrested for fraud because that's what he's been for the last 5 years. The head coaching gig that he had or lack thereof, and it just, like you said, everybody wants, as much as Nathaniel Hackett sucks and, like I said, should be arrested, thrown in prison. It's not even him. It's an ownership thing. We see this with a lot of teams in bad ownership. They do the same stuff over and over again. And the problem with the Jets right now is this team that they assembled will set them back even farther the next couple of years. And I hate to say that. Joe Douglas, he's made some nice moves, but I think he's made some very dumb ones as well. The one guy he signed over this offseason that hasn't played a snap or hasn't shown up on the defensive side of the ball. There's still nobody knows anything about him. Who is that? Hassan Reddick that we're talking about?
It is, but I don't blame Douglas. Any player can quit at any time.
That's fair, but you got to take some ownership. They traded that Malachi Corley for an offense that's so bad. They traded up for him. Very excited for him. Haven't seen him. He's on
fair.
right now, missing. Offensive line's supposed to be great. I mean, they gave
They're
the
not.
range
They're not.
supposed to be, but I digress. And they did the thing with Zach Wilson, Joe Douglas did. They saw him at a pro day, threw the ball really far, told the entire NFL that they loved him, couldn't wait to have him. As much as he stunk, they failed him too. Kept trotting him out there every week, and Saleh saying, "Oh, we stick with him." They had Joe Flacco, they had Mike White. I could have been quarterback and gotten more out of that team, but it's an ownership problem, and it's pretty clear that the Jets probably aren't going to go very far this year. The AFC is very soft at the moment. Maybe they can sneak in, but once Aaron Rodgers and his gang is gone, they're going to have to do a reset at quarterback. You have Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson, who are kind of being wasted at the moment, especially Garrett Wilson.
Yep.
They go back to the Zach Wilson situation where they don't have a quarterback because if you're in the middle of the pack, you're in the middle of the pack. You don't ever get the quarterback. You can go get Andy Dalton, and you end up in that same conundrum. So times are tough as a Jets fan. I pray for all of you, especially JJ, every night before I go to bed because you deserve better.
I don't.
Yes, you do.
I don't know if I do.
It just, like I said, people point to Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett. As much as I hate him, I've came on here and taken every shot I can at Nathaniel Hackett for the last probably close to a year. But you can blame those guys, even Aaron Rodgers. This is an ownership problem.
But then they replace Hackett with Todd Downing. Who has done nothing but made offenses worse every place he's gone. He's been the OC in the Raiders and Tennessee?
Titans, who were ranked 30th in overall offense before he got the boot. So,
oh, Lord. All right.
The times are tough. They played the Bills, who are really struggling at the moment. They kind of came out good, but got a lot of injuries. Defense is beat up. Maybe they win, give some hope, but I don't see it getting much better. But
I'm sorry, Curtis. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers, like I said.
All right.
But Aaron Rodgers is a chode. I'll leave it at that. That's my last shot.
That's a good drop the mic, and it leads us to our Thursday night preview. So last week, Joe and I tied with 2 correct bets out of 5. Whoo! Put your money with us. Jameson had 1. Correct.
No,
Jameson.
No comment. After I went on a rant about the Atlanta Falcons offense not doing anything, and Kirk Cousins throwing for 500 yards, getting the crowd involved, doing all the
Kyle Pitts breaking his over under on the one
first
catch.
Play.
Yeah. Yeah, so for the season, Joe is still leading the way with 6. J-Mo and I are tied with 4 correct. And tonight, we have Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers visiting Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. So, Jameson, let's make some picks. What is the line tonight?
So, we got San Francisco favored by 3.5 points. Over-under is 47.5. So, pretty high scoring affair. Usually the high ones get in the low 50s. I think the highest one's been probably 53 this year. So 47.5 is a pretty good number, especially for Thursday night football.
All right. So am I going? Let's let Joe go first. So right, Joe sent us his picks. He's picking Seattle getting 3.5, and he took the over. Jameson, what are you doing?
I will take San Francisco laying the 3.5. If you are a bettor, you would prefer this line to be at 3 and not get whacked with the hook. But San Francisco has had 2 very bad losses. Once against the Rams and this past week against the Cardinals. I think they right the ship against the Seattle defense that has just been destroyed by injuries, to say the least. And I think Nick Bosa and the gang can hit Geno pretty hard. That offensive line is hurting too. As much as I love Geno Smith, if he's going up against any decent pass rush, I mean, that clock is being sped up big time. So I'll lean San Francisco laying the 3.5, and I'm going to pick the over as well. Defenses should get a lot of points in this one.
All right. Well, I'm struggling here. I just switched my pick from Seattle to San Francisco. I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I don't bet. But I think San Francisco is going to win outright. I think they should be able to cover 3.5 points. They should be able to do that. But I am going with oh no. Late breaking news. Seattle is wearing the throwbacks tonight. I am changing my bet and taking Seattle getting 3.5. Oh, listen, I can flip, I can flop,
That's
I
fine.
can do both. And I'm taking the under.
I think a little different. That's a little fair, though. Throwbacks are nice, though. If anything, like the Seattle throwbacks, the San Diego Chargers powder blue.
Those
back
are
in
the
day.
best.
Yes, I mean, so uniforms do count. Maybe they don't show up in the box score, but I do think that they bring a little swagger and a little intense, especially on offense, to make offenses fly and look a lot better.
I love the Tampa creamsicle ones.
Everybody hated them when they were there, and once they become retro, everybody loved them. But I mean, Baker Bake's a lot better in the retro uniforms, so I think it does count a little bit towards especially the offense. So I don't blame you there.
All right, so we have our picks for the line and the over/under. What prop bets do you have for us tonight?
We got 3. So starting off big cock Brock Purdy, over 252 passing yards. He's the man. I'm just saying.
Well, okay.
So Jordan Mason over 82 rushing yards, and then DK Metcalf over 64 receiving yards. So
now I was just diagnosed with ADHD. You know I can't remember 3 things if you say them in a row. So let's focus on one at a time. Yes. Purdy, 252.
Seems a little light to me. Well, let's get Joe's analysis first via airmail.
Joe said he's taking the over. He said Purdy is the lock to throw for almost 300 tonight and 3 TDs. He didn't say all that. I'm saying it for him.
Hard to disagree there. I'm going to go with the over as well, especially last week against Arizona where they had every reason to run the ball with Jordan Mason. They decided to just let Brock Purdy chuck it. So he's gotten there mostly every single game, I believe, except for 2. I mean, he's hitting almost 300 yards, a lot of passing. Like I said, the Seattle defense has just been shredded with injuries, so I'm going to hit the over as well.
I agree. They have been shredded by injury. With both of you going over, I need to make a little ground. So I'm going to go under. I think they're going to run the hell out of the ball with the defensive injuries that Seattle has, the injuries that Seattle has to the line. So I am hoping for a sustained rushing attack tonight.
So next prop we have Jordan Mason over 82 rushing yards. I would assume that you were going to lean the over here with what you just
Absolutely. Said. I am not a hypocrite, or at least I'm consistent. I will take the over. I think he's going to go over 100 yards tonight.
I'm going to take the over as well. He's only not hit that yardage once this year. So, I mean, he's been very reliable. And then Joe from Airmail has hit the over on that as well.
This just in, he's taking the over.
Yes. So
he's taking the over.
All 3, that is a best bet. All 3 of us hitting the over on that. So that makes that a best bet.
Well, we have never been right when we all agreed. So maybe not the best bet.
Take it with a grain of salt. We'll just put it that way.
All right. What is the last prop?
DK Metcalf over 64 receiving yards. So I'm going to take the over on this as well. He's had 3 games of 100 yards or more so far this year out of 5 games. And one game he was going up against Patrick Surtain, who has locked up everybody. And then the only other game he hasn't had it was last week against the Giants going up against DeAndre Banks. Kind of a weird game, but I just if they're going to have a chance to win, it's going to have to be through the air, and I think DK Metcalf gets there.
Well, since they are going to win, I'm taking the over for DK Metcalf. I think he definitely can go over 64 yards. And Joe?
Through airmail, the last one, he has also hit the over. He is a over-hitting machine tonight. So
yeah, both of you are. You guys all took overs. This is my chance to make up some ground or get buried in it.
Talk about diversifying.
Ah, yes, diversification. Isn't that the name of a ship? I don't know. It is time for tags where we share any final thoughts and let everybody know where they can find us. Joe is on assignment, so we will go to Jameson.
Over on the Twitter machine at Jameson Rules. We got that first try. That's pretty nice.
That's awesome.
Here every Thursday, the Rod Pod. Every Sunday morning with Joel Work doing DFS. I hope you listened last week. I gave you Joe Burrow best bet and also Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas, wide receiver 3. Joe Burrow, quarterback 1. So you can't get that anywhere else. Doing really good. So you want to make some money, DFS on Sundays with Joel Worth over at IDP Plus.
Yeah, I'm at JJ Wenner on Twitter. I hit that every time. You need to watch Joel Worth and Jameson. Again, I know I say this every week. I don't play DFS, and I love that show. They give you so much information. They go game by game, breaking it down. Use them to pick your starts and sits. Love it. I love what you guys do. And of course, Joe does great content too, but he's not here, so I'm not going to support him as much. But be sure to tune in next Wednesday to the All Out Blitz, where Doug and I dive into the film and analytics for this week, and then come back on Thursday for another live Rod Pod. So from all of us to all of you, be safe, be well, and as always, boat drinks, my friends, boat drinks.
Thank you.
Hit it. That's all.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.